Hello, all my friends out in TV land. This is Senior Issues, etc. I'm your host, Vita Verdon. Sit back, relax, go get your cup of coffee, bring a paper and pencil. I know you have had requests. I've had people call me, and I have a reoccurring guest on the show. It's going to be very interested. This one's for you. I want you to give a warm welcome to Dr. Bernard Hubbard. So nice to have you back on the show. Dr. Hubbard has been on the show a few times in the past, and he is the past president of the Lake County Genealogical Society, and he's going to tell us what's going on with the society and what's going on with him. And there's a lot going on right now, so we're going to get right to it. First of all, for the benefit of, we have affiliates that have joined us and haven't seen you before. If you would be so gracious as to just look right into that camera and give a little background on yourself.
Okay.
You know, I think that they would enjoy hearing this before we get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
Okay.
Okay? Just look right in there.
So my name is Daniel Hubbard. I'm a full-time professional genealogist. I've been doing genealogy since I was about 11 years old, and people often ask me, how did I get into genealogy that young? I actually started not so seriously when I was about 9, and it's because of two aunts who were both interested in it, and I got to realize at some point that some of the family stories that they told weren't things that they had been told by their parents. They were things that they had figured out for themselves, and I thought that that research sounded like a lot of fun. So I got interested in it and started to get really serious when I was 11. Eventually, I became a particle physicist. I got my doctorate in particle physics. Spent 8 years at CERN, which is the big particle physics accelerator complex outside Geneva, Switzerland, and got my doctorate there, but eventually moved back to Libertyville, where I'm from. In fact, moved into a house that my grandfather built that I bought from my parents. So now my kids are the fourth generation who lived there, and I think what could be better for a genealogist
to be in a fourth-generation house.
Exactly, to sit in his grandfather's office. And my grandfather was a building contractor, so he really built the house. It wasn't just that he had someone build it, he built it himself. You know, to sit in Grandpa's office and do genealogical research for clients, write books for clients, that sort of thing. So that's my basic bio. I was on the board of the Lake County Genealogical Society for 8 years, 4 as first vice president and 4 as president, but we have term limits and you can only do those things for 4 years each. So as of June, I am past president of the society, no longer president.
Well, maybe that you could tell us a little bit about the Lake County Genealogical Society. How long has it been in existence? Do you have any idea?
Yes, since the 70s. I remember my aunt taking me to one of their early meetings. She wasn't one of the members who started right from the very beginning, but close. So I remember going to their meetings maybe 1975, 76, somewhere in there.
So it's been in existence for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
I know it really has expanded within the last recent years.
Oh, yes.
People have gained a lot more interested in the subject matter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, two things have really made genealogy explode in the last few years. One is the internet, because you can get at information, especially records, a lot easier than you used to be able to. And the other is DNA testing. So you can find distant relatives that you don't even know how you're related to them, but you can find them through DNA.
I know way back that the only ones that had the computers was the Mormon Church. They used to do that, but now it's so widespread. So now the Genealogical Society has been in existence since the 70s, and where is the library for it?
Okay, the library is in the Vernon Hills Town Hall down in their basement. It was a temporary library for one of the local library districts, so it's a perfect spot for us from that point of view. It's all set up to be a library. It's on Evergreen Drive, just off of US 45 in Vernon Hills.
And now, what hours is the library open?
Because it's in the village hall, it can
It's only open in correspondence to the village hall.
Exactly. It would be nice if we could be open on weekends and on evenings. Unfortunately, except for the occasional Tuesday evening where we can be open because they're having a meeting, we're only open during business hours.
Well, I know, like, people who are interested, they could come in and look up things.
Yeah.
You have computers in there?
We have computers, we have books, we have original records. In fact, one of the exciting things that's happened recently is one of the big genealogy collections in the area used to be held at the Winnetka Library, but they have space problems and they decided to donate their collection, and we got most of it, which just about doubled our size. So we have one of the biggest genealogy collections in the area now.
So for people, if they're interested in tracking on their own, then they're welcome to come up. Now, Vernon Hills, I know, is about 35 miles northwest of Chicago Loop.
Right.
And you gave the address of it. It's on Evergreen Drive and 45 in Vernon Hills. And so you can call the, the City Hall?
It's in the village hall, yeah.
It's a village hall.
Yeah.
They can call the village hall for the hours that the village hall is open, that they would have access, and they could come in and study records on their own. But that isn't where the Genealogical Society meets, is it?
No, it's not. We meet in Mundelein, which is not far from Vernon Hills.
That's close.
Right.
So they're all like, there's Vernon Hills, Libertyville, Mundelein, Grays Lake. It's all within the general area, just a few miles apart.
Right.
And so when do you hold the meetings?
Our meetings are monthly from January through October.
Okay.
On the second Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
At 7 o'clock in the Mundelein. It's a sports complex on Midlothian Road.
On Midlothian.
Yeah, the Park District buildings.
Okay, it's Midlothian, and is that 45 also there?
No, that's not 45. Midlothian is parallel to 45.
Oh.
But it's not.
Midlothian, what is the other cross street
There's
there?
no cross street there. It's near Fremont Library.
Oh, it's close to Fremont Library.
Yeah.
So if you know where Fremont Library is, then you could find this, right? The sports center. Okay, so now at the up-and-coming meetings, are you going to be discussing things at these meetings? What is up-and-coming meetings going to be about?
Well, the up-and-coming meeting, actually, because we only meet from January to October, our normal meeting. The next thing we have coming up is our workshop, which is a much bigger deal.
Well, we're going to save
We're going to save that for later. Yes, I know.
Later, but you can tell about some of the meetings. What are some of the subject matters that you discuss?
Right. So we generally will have a speaker about once a year. It's me, but then we bring in other people, and they might be talking about how to use city directories to research your genealogy, or how to use cemetery records, or if you've got a specific ancestry, say Scottish, what to do about Scottish records, where to get at them, how to think about them, that sort of thing.
So most of the subject matter is focused on different ways of getting in, like if you're looking for somebody like Scott, if you're looking in a certain line of people, like I know military records, that's a big thing. That's part of what the workshop is. So that's good because these are things that are hard to achieve. So as a group, putting ideas together
Right.
and getting out and having speakers talk about that expands it, how more accessible we can get to records. Because, you know, people think, well, you just go in City Hall and get records. But if you go back a couple generations, most of the records were in churches, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, when they first start off in genealogy, they think it's a process of going to the county courthouse or the city and collecting birth, marriage, and death records. Well, birth records are a fairly recent thing for a county to keep, and there are certainly people in your viewing audience whose own parents did not have a birth record because they just weren't done then.
Yeah, well, we're going to carry on with that, but right now what I'm going to go into is Vita's Pearls of Wisdom. Okay, the first thing I want to do is give our from Senior Issues, etc., gratitude to the Liberty Towers Associates for their generous continued support. They have been a organization that has supported us right from the start, from 2000. So we really have a lot of gratitude to them for their latest support to us to keep us on the air. And that's what our goal is, to stay on the air. Now, the other subject that I want to talk to you about is really important. As of October 15th is open enrollment in Medicare. Now, one of our team members, you know, a year ago, I had a representative from SHIP, and that is Senior Health Insurance Program, which is an extension of Medicare, and they help you decode what drugs you have and what kind of doctors, what is the best insurance plan for you. Well, where they go onto Medicare's website, and that's how they figure it out. So you can go on directly, go on to medicare.gov, and you could figure out your own team. Now, our team member, the man who manages our website, he went on searching for his wife and himself, and he called me really excited because he saved $2,000 in doing it. Now, last year I had the SHIP representative on, so you know on my website we've got about 90 shows, and you can look it up. So what we did is we pulled it up, and if you go onto the website you'll find a little box, and you could press that button and you could see that SHIP show, and that'll give you all the instructions. And now I know it's open enrollment. I don't know exactly how long the enrollment goes. It goes for a few months, but now's the time to get in there and to check out. It isn't that complicated. Check out all your physicians and check out all your prescriptions and find out which plan will give you the best deal, and it's worth it to check it out. Now, you know, I'm emphasizing that because this is a good thing how you can help yourself. Now, to go into our website, you go into Senior Issues, etc., etc.org. Okay, once you get in there, you'll be on the home page. Once you're on the home page, the first thing that you'll find is where all the shows are seen. If you scroll down, then you'll see it'll say programs, and a bunch of little boxes will pop up, but will also be on the top one little box in reserve, and that will be this box where it shows the SHIP representative. But also now I'm going to give you the Medicare website. It's medicare.gov. And now you've got our website, Senior Issues, etc., etc.org. Okay, we're going to get right back to Dr. Hubbard now. Okay, now we can get back and we can talk about what's up and coming with as far as talking about military tracking.
Right.
You want to talk about that one?
Sure. Yeah, the Lake County Society, as I said, we meet normally January through October. Mm-hmm. But then in November, we have a much bigger meeting that we have at a separate location because we get over 100 people. It's a full day affair with lunch. And this year, because of the timing, It falls on Veterans Day.
Oh, that's good.
So we decided to do a sort of a military-themed workshop. So one of
Now
our...
you're talking about military and our ancestry, right?
Exactly.
You can track the military.
Right, because often in genealogy, you've got to look where the records were made.
Okay.
And who has an interest in keeping really good records about people?
Is
The
military.
Army, the
Right.
Navy, because they have to know, when did these guys fill out their draft info, and when did they enlist, pension information, all of that sort of stuff. So it's a military-themed workshop. We do have some other things going on as well. But that's the basic gist of it, is military record
So that's going to
research.
be coming up right in November.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a good one. Now, I know that you have a lot of events coming up. You're going to be speaking at different places. Why don't you tell our audience where you're going to be speaking?
Okay. The big deal for me coming up is I'm going to be speaking at the Illinois State Genealogical Society.
And where is that located?
Well, that moves around the state. This time it's going to be in Moline.
Okay.
And it is the
That's Moline, Illinois.
Illinois, yes.
Not Moline, Alabama. Moline,
No, Moline,
Illinois.
Illinois, in the Quad
Okay.
Cities. And that is going to be the last weekend of October.
Okay.
You can look at the state's Illinois Genealogical Society's website, figure that out, and attend if you want. I'm going to be speaking about writing family history because that's one of their themes this year. So I'm going to talk about how writing a family history can help you, think about...
What do you mean by writing it? You just write down all your memories?
Well, that's part of it. What I'm really writing about or talking about is when you get a lot of information about an ancestor, you can start to write sort of the narrative of their life. And when you do that, instead of thinking...
It's a narrative like their birth, then their marriage,
whatever
effective dates.
Right.
So you're writing the date, the chronological,
Well,
the
it's-
dates and the stories of what they did.
Yeah, exactly. The story, you need to get the dates because you need to have a skeleton. But then try to
Sounds
write...
funny, a skeleton.
Yeah, it has a genealogical context too. But if you can sort of get into their heads and write the story of their lives, you discover that there are little tidbits that you didn't think were important when you did the research. In fact, my favorite example is in my own family. There's an obituary that talks about how they were pioneers crossing Wisconsin, and it talked about a thing called a drum boat. And when I was writing about this family, I wanted to describe a drum boat. And I'd never heard of one. I just sort of imagined something you could use to float down a river that wasn't very boat-like. It turns out there's no such thing as a drum boat. There is such a thing as a Durham boat, and that is what they meant. And by researching that, I unlocked a whole episode in this man's life that I had no idea about because of the man who had introduced this kind of boat to Wisconsin and how all of this stuff fit together. It just exploded the research just for that one little weird thing that I wanted to describe for people.
Oh, that's so interesting. Now, where else are you going to be speaking?
Let's see, I just spoke in Schaumburg. I'm going to be speaking in Ottawa. You can actually check my website on the...
Okay, why don't you give us the website? Look into the camera,
Okay.
give the website.
My website is www.thepersonalpast.com. I have a
Now,
blog.
can somebody contact you through this website?
Oh, yes. I have my contact information there with my business number, a little contact form that people fill out that sends me an email that's really convenient because then they can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're stuck on something. They decide they want to hire someone, they can contact me. But I have all my speaking engagements, past and present, listed there so that people can figure out where I'm speaking next.
You know, I'd like you to tell our audience the story that you told me. It's so heartwarming about this adopted gal.
Oh, yes.
It's such a heartwarming story that connected.
One of my most recent projects was a woman. She knew she was adopted. There was no secret about that. Her adoptive parents made it clear to her whole life. But she wanted to discover who her biological parents were. She got the name of her biological mother, but didn't know where to go from there. So she contacted me, and I was able to figure out some clues and research. Turns out her biological mother had passed away, which is too bad, but I was able to find her mother's sister. And her mother's sister was quite a bit younger than her mother, so she didn't quite remember how this could fit, but she said, you know what, I'll take a DNA test. So the two of them took DNA tests, and the results just came back last week. And when you take a DNA test, they predict your relationship, because the amount of DNA that matches depends on how closely you're related.
This how the connection
Right.
goes.
The more the DNA that matches, the more
the closer you are. So
Right.
by close you mean immediate, like sister, brother,
Yes.
grandmother,
Right.
Is that what? Am I correct?
Exactly. Sometimes it'll say about a match that we think it's, say, second to fourth cousin, but about these two, it had, I think, 3 different relationships that were possible: grandmother, granddaughter, half sisters, and aunt and niece. And aunt and niece is exactly what I
Exactly
thought
the connection.
should
Oh,
be.
that is so nice
So
to make that connection.
I called the aunt. I mean, obviously I had talked to the aunt because she had taken a DNA test. I called her and told her that I'd just seen the match, and it was exactly what I thought it would be. And I asked her permission to give her, now we know, niece, her phone number so the two of them can talk. And she was overjoyed. She said, oh yeah, definitely give her my phone number. So I did that last week, and now I'm sure the two of them have talked.
Oh, that is so interesting. So now let's summation of this. Now the library is located, if people want to go, in the Village Hall in Vernon Hills, and that's on Evergreen Parkway.
And 45,
and
US 45.
In Vernon Hills. And the monthly meetings are held in Mundelein, right?
Right.
At the Sports Center in Mundelein,
Yeah.
and that is close to the Fremont Library.
Right, off of Midlothian Road, yes.
And then you can give your website one more time. People can contact you, and
Right.
they can get your itinerary, and they can get all the information there. Why don't you give your website one more time?
One more time? Okay. It's www.thepersonalpast.com.
Now, if a person wants to get started, what is the first thing they do and get started? They just take their parents?
Yeah, the sort of the first rule of genealogy is you
that's
start.
what we want to know, the
you
beginning rule.
Start with yourself.
You start with yourself.
Right. That's for a couple of reasons. One is it's often easier for you to get records about yourself than it will be for other people.
To get records about you.
Because for privacy reasons, recent records are generally closed except when they are the person who's involved in the records. Then so that's one reason to do it. The other is it's really rare, but sometimes people discover they're adopted. And I always say you should research the adoptive parents too, because they brought you up. So, but you want to know that before you really start off. It's rare, but it does happen. But then you want a solid bit of research to connect you as you go back, because you don't want to go back 5 or 6 generations and discover you have a mistake at generation number 3. You want to do a thorough job starting with yourself and going backwards in time.
Now, what if you come to a dead end? What do you do? How do you...
Well, obviously one thing you can do is hire a professional to help you, but one tip is people often, they get sort of genealogical tunnel vision. I'm only interested in the parents, nobody else. But if you start to work
some other relatives,
even neighbors can be keys, because sometimes neighbors turn out to be relatives and you just didn't know it. Sometimes you can't figure out where people ended up, but people migrated together. So if you look for the neighbor that you know about, you might find your people living next door in a totally different place, 10, 20 years earlier. So sort of broadening the research can help you get back.
Now, if somebody wants to come to a meeting, do you have any of that on your website, the meetings?
Not for the Genealogical Society, no, that's on their own website. But for any meeting that I'm speaking at, that'll be listed on my website, yeah.
But now, is it just an open forum at the meeting? Anybody could go?
Anybody can come. Of course, we encourage people to become members. But anybody can come. It's totally open to the public.
But anybody can go to the library.
Yes.
To your library, and they can look it up. Now, is the library just empty, or is there a person in the library?
For the library to be open, there has to be a volunteer there.
So there's
there
always
will be
a person there that could help you in getting started.
Yeah. Just help you, even if you know what you're doing. It's nice to be able to be pointed in the right direction. We have a lot of material, and if what you want is over there, you'll want to start over there and get confused.
Well, we want to make it clear what the genealogy is. What the genealogy is, you're getting all the past. That's not a family tree. The family tree is current, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there are different ways of looking at it, but yeah, if you're interested in, your cousins and all of that, it can fall into genealogy, but a lot of people simply, if you take the word literally, gene means origins.
Oh, the origins.
So it's researching your origins.
Your past.
Yeah.
And so it's the past that brings it up to the current.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then in the current, then you could continue the tree in the current.
Oh, sure.
Right? Okay. So do you have any closing story that something interesting to leave us with?
Well, let's see. One of the things that we talked about earlier was that in researching my own family, we got back to an ancestor who we didn't find any record of his birth, but we found a record of the man who seemed to be his father and the husband and wife, the father's sister who brought this boy up. But then, years and years ago, I was contacted by a distant cousin I didn't even know existed, who wanted me to take a DNA test, because her father had done one, and it didn't seem quite right to them. And I was in Sweden at the time, so I had my father take the test for me. Our two fathers matched perfectly, but they didn't match the other people who were supposed to be descended from these people. Turns out our surname probably should be Smith, and that there was a younger sister who seems to have had an out-of-wedlock child, and the person we thought was my ancestor was actually the uncle of this boy, not the father.
So they took the boy in and gave the boy the name.
Gave the boy an identity and all of this stuff. Probably related, but not the way we originally thought.
So you're not Dr. Hubbard, you're Dr. Smith?
I will still go by Dr. Hubbard.
You still go by Dr. Hubbard. Well, that's interesting to find out that you're going by a different name. Now, if you have any interest in this, just follow it through, because, that's something that we all need to know, is what our roots, where we come from. And that's kind of an interesting thing. Now, I just want to reiterate one more time that this is the open enrollment with the Medicare. This is the open enrollment now. It started October 15th, so you can either go into my website and get the SHIP show, seniorissues.etc.org, or you can go into medicare.gov and follow through on this. You could save yourself some money. And when you out there come to the end of your rope, you tie a knot and you hang on real tight, because you know why? Because the best is yet to come, and what we want y'all to do this week is to catch the spirit. God bless you. We love you. Yeah, good show. Went fast.